Okay. Welcome everybody who's here. So today the reason I wanted to do this Zoom group was I had a lot of people who asked me what my experience was of attending the Landmark Forum.
Mhm.
So I wanted to create a group and invite some people in to talk about what my experience was. Um, and I think just to start it off to begin, I want to share a little bit about why I enrolled in
Mhm.
Landmark. Like
Yeah.
the reason that I chose to go to Landmark to begin with. I kind of want to share a little bit about that story first. Um, I had a what would I call it? I would call it a raise in my consciousness. I had an experience where I fell in love with everything. I fell in love with everybody, and I was super excited about it. And I started getting a little bit worried because I don't know if you've ever had a time in your life when you started showing up in a way and being present in a way that you hadn't before. And I
Yeah.
started to get worried, like, this is going to go away. I know it's going to go away. Right. And I
Yeah.
didn't want that experience to leave. So I reached out to some people that I respect a lot and I felt like they could relate to that experience.
Hmm.
Um, and one of the people that I reached out to was a friend of mine named Steve. And I sent him a message and he called me and and we got connected on a phone call and I told him what was going on. And I said, can you help me? I want to keep going with this. I don't want it to go away. I don't want it to stop. I want to continue to be in this level of presence. And I felt like I was really living my life in a level of integrity and presence that I had never experienced before. And it was such a beautiful experience that I just didn't want it to stop. So he said, "Yeah, I can help you, but you're going to have to commit to something." And I said, "Okay, I'll do it. What is it?" And then he shared with me about something that he said he has done a few times, and he said it's called the Landmark Forum. And his suggestion to me was that I do the Landmark Forum as soon as possible and the closest place I could. So as soon as I got off the call with my friend Steve, I looked up online and I found Atlanta, Georgia, which is it's about a 10-hour drive from me. Atlanta, Georgia had a Landmark Forum about 3 or 4 weeks from whenever I had this conversation. So even though I already had some things on my credit card and I didn't know how I was going to do it, and I also had my girlfriend, it was Valentine's Day weekend, so my girlfriend and I had plans for Valentine's Day weekend. I was also supposed to get my daughter that weekend, but I chose to say yes to the Landmark Forum. I paid for it, made the commitment, and then I started going back to the other agreements that I had with my daughter's mother, the agreements that I had with my girlfriend for our plans for Valentine's. And I went back and cleaned that up the best I could and took care of that and communicated. Um, and to be able to do that in a way that was workable for my daughter's mother, instead of getting her the one weekend, I got her the weekend before and the weekend after. And I drove to close to Philadelphia, which is about 3.5 hours one way from my house to get her, and I took her back. So I drove the whole way there and back with my daughter, and drove her all the way back and home twice to be able to make the experience workable for her, so that she would be open. I told her I want you to win. I want This is something important for me that I need to do, and I want you to win as well. So I was able to clean that up. And then the day came, I drove down there on a Thursday, the Thursday before Valentine's Day, and the event is a 3-day transformational event. And then it's all day from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. for 3 days. And then there's one day off, and then you come back on the Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. until 10:15. Um, so I drove down there very present, very ready, excited. I had a lot of it's like, yeah, I'm gonna go down there. I'm gonna learn all this stuff. I'm gonna bring it back and share it with all my friends, and everybody's gonna love it and share it with my clients and share it with all these people. And I had a bag full of Steve Chandler books and Byron Katie, Loving What Is. I had a bag full of books. Um, Steve Chandler, the Ultimate Coach book, just all kinds of books that I wanted to share with people in the group, that I thought would make a difference, and had all these big plans. Had a little Airbnb. So anyway, get down there Friday morning. I go in and I have my notebook and a pen. And by the way, I have about 20 pages of notes here. And I start writing notes on the first day. Larry was amazing. He was the leader of the Landmark Forum. Um, and I kind of expected it was going to be a small group. I didn't realize there was going to be 177 people in the room. And so I had some expectations before I showed up. And there was 177 people there, and I was kind of surprised. I expected, oh, I'm driving 10 hours. I'm going to be the one who drove from the furthest away. And I get there and there's 177 people there, and there's people from other countries, and I'm like, wow, I only drove 10 hours. These other people are flying from other countries, starting to have a little bit of self-judgment. I felt really present on the drive all the way there. I was just relaxed driving, just had a great time, really connecting with people. So I got in there, got my tag, I got my seat right up front, the second row. So it wasn't right up front, but it was close. So Larry starts in with, Larry was amazing. So just so present every single day. He was so present, so focused, so attentive. So he was there, fully present. It was really amazing to experience. But I'm taking notes, and we get probably about an hour and a half in, and he said, "Well, we suggest you don't take notes." I and I don't usually take notes, so this was a little different for me. Typically, I just show up without taking notes, but I really wanted to understand the process. I really wanted to understand how it all worked. Like, how is this transformation actually happening? Um, but it was very quick. He asked a question that I have written down here. He said, everyone wants a great result until it's time to look at what's not working and do something different. Jim raised his hand. Hi, Jim.
Hey, how
Welcome.
are you, bud? Good to see you.
Good.
I'm not feeling that great, my friend, but I'm here. So, do you know why? Okay, first off, I'm personal friends with Larry, okay, and his wife,
Oh, that's
okay,
awesome. He's
and
phenomenal.
yeah, and I was down in Atlanta in November when I took my 12-year-old daughter Brooke to the forum. So do you know why they ask you not to take notes,
I
or
have
did he
some
cover
ideas,
that?
but I think he did, but I was taking notes, so I didn't catch it.
So and this goes for everyone else. And if you don't know me, I'm Jim Becker. I'm from Chicago, and Robert and I go way back. Um, the reason being is the person that's in the class, your body, that's the one that's in the forum, and your mind is capturing all the information. Now, your ego will say, "Write this down, write that down, write this down, write that down." Okay, good. That's what happens. And then what happens is then there's somebody taking notes. The person taking notes isn't listening to Larry. Guess who the person taking notes is listening to?
The mind.
Right. It's listening to Robert, right? So there's agency there that's happening. And so the moment you start writing notes, you're no longer listening to Larry. And so Landmark Forum is based on three principles: transformation, possibility, and enrollment. And that's their technology. And so when you step outside of that and you go and do your own thing, taking notes, you are no longer in the class. You're in your head, like you pointed to, right? So, and just try that at any point in time and have someone tell you a story, and then go ahead and write down your thoughts about the story. And what ends up happening is you're only giving your attention to about, you can retain about 20%, where when you're omnipresent, you can take and absorb everything in. So,
Awesome.
yeah, so I just
Yeah,
wanted to
thank you
share
for
that with
sharing
you.
that.
I didn't want you to step over that, especially with the other people that you have invited here. So I just wanted to share that. Okay. That's all I got.
I
Thank you.
appreciate. Thanks, Jim. Thanks for sharing that. I appreciate that. Tell Larry I said thank you so much. I love that guy. My goodness, wow. His level of presence is just it was phenomenal. Um, and that Larry asked a question of what's not working. And it was really clear for me one of the things that was not working at the time, and I got up and shared. He asked people to come share what's not working. And I got up and shared that I wasn't taking agency for my physical health, that I had been basically eating a lot of junk food and not doing any exercise, and that I was having some heart palpitations and feeling like at nighttime, even thinking, man, I might have a heart attack if I keep this crap up, but I was still doing the same thing. And I shared that with the group. Um, and then there were other people who shared what wasn't working in their lives. A lot of personal things around relationships and things that um, I'm not at liberty to share, but there were a lot of deep, very deep, meaningful things that maybe these people, I know that's not something that I had shared with. I hadn't really shared that with anyone except for my girlfriend, and not to the level that I shared it with the group. So that really made a big difference for me. Um, and then we stepped into talking about, Larry started to talk about some of these things where we're resisting experiencing our experience. We're living life resisting experiencing our experience. And I was really curious about what that meant. And I started to get more understanding of that when he started to talk about how we are living our lives from our past and decisions that we've made in the past. And he went through a particular process later on in the forum. It's called Collapse, where they talk about how I made a decision in my past and how I started to gather information to prove that that was true in my life. Like, I'll give you an example. I didn't share this at the forum, but it's something that I've worked on before. When I was in third grade, the local fire company came in and they wanted all the children to do an art project that they could hang up at the fire station about fire safety. And I got my crayons out when I got home after the fire company came and all the firemen were there and they showed us the fire truck. I went home and I was really excited to make an art project. So, and they said about fire safety. So I made a little coloring of don't smoke in bed. That was my that was my fire safety warning. Don't smoke in bed. My mom was a smoker. Um, and I remember taking it to school, and I remember all the kids laughing. And I remember how I felt. And I remember at that moment going through this process, I realized at that moment, I there were a lot of unconscious thoughts that came up in that moment that I chose to believe and hang on to. And I think it's an unconscious thing as children. I made that, what did I make that event mean? I made it mean that I wasn't safe to share what I wanted to share, that my words weren't valuable, my expression wasn't received in a good way, that people would laugh at me if I shared. So I created a lot of these stories around that event And then I started to go through my life and prove where these things were true. Um, and it was interesting to see other people go through that process. And what I started to realize was I walked in that room thinking, I was like, I'm living in integrity. I got my stuff together. I kind of felt like my life was going pretty well. And when I got in the room and we started talking about that stuff, I started to see I I was still, and I still am, living my life from a lot of past decisions in a lot of areas of my life around my relationships and with my physical health, my eating, with my parents. I started to see all of these areas where I felt like I had already done the work and that I had already arrived at some place, but I started to see I got a lot more work to do than I thought. And I started to judge myself and I started to isolate. I actually, after the first day, I started to isolate quite a bit. And into the second day, I know the first day I went and ate by myself because I was having a lot of judgment about, I felt like going into it, I felt like, hey, my life's pretty integral. I'm doing pretty good. And then when I got there, I realized how much work that I still have to do, which is on one hand is um, a beautiful opportunity, but on the other hand, when I kind of felt like I was further along than I was, I kind of had myself at this place of like, have you ever felt like that? Or like, I got this all figured out finally. Thank goodness. I kind of felt like that when I went in. I'm going to gift these books and I'm going to make all kinds of friends and I'm going to meet a bunch of people and serve people. And I've been through this work before. And I started to realize, I had created a lot of expectations going into the room. Um, and that was part of the reason why I was taking notes because I was going to bring all the notes back and share it with all these people. And, I wasn't living with that present moment awareness. And I was acting, it wasn't the be, do, have. I was trying to take the notes so I could have the notes so I could come back here and be, something special to the people whenever I came back. I'm gonna have all the answers and I can help people and it's gonna be great. Um, so that was my experience. And then I started noticing I really love what everybody was sharing. That was something I loved so much. There was a lot of very deep, intimate details of people's lives that I would probably imagine some of those people have never shared the things that they shared in that meeting, in that group together. Um, and that was miraculous. That was miraculous because I saw whenever people shared from the heart and they got authentic about their inauthenticities, when they started really being straight and really being real and sharing what was really on their hearts and had been for some time, you could see how many people in the room connected to that truth, how many people connected to that level of authenticity, how many people had the same thing going on in their lives. It was really beautiful, the forum aspect, to be able to see when somebody shared, like when I shared about me not taking responsibility for my physical health. There were people I'm sure that could connect with that and laying in bed at night thinking, I'm having some kind of heart palpitations. Man, am I going to have a heart attack soon? I mean, how many people can relate to that a little bit here? Can you relate to that? Like when we start to share things like that, it's very interesting to see how many of us, how we're so similar and how we have the same thinking. And how that's the thinking that we can protect the most and hide the most, at least in my life. Those are the things that I want to share the least because I'm afraid that people will judge me for it. Um, so that's some of the experience, really meaningful. And then they talked about cleaning up the past and being authentic about our inauthenticities. And what that looked like for me was one of the particular areas that that came up in was with my daughter's mother. We separated in 2022. We were together for 15 years. We were married for 8. When I met her, her name's Melanie. When I met Melanie, she had a son who was 5. And whenever we separated, he was 20. Um, and he's 23 now. And we had 2 daughters. We have a 17-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old daughter. And one of the areas where I felt they ask us to write a letter and to be authentic about our inauthenticities, not to send the letter, but to start to get clear about where what my experience was is where have I been blaming other people for how I feel? That's what I got from it. Where have I been blaming other people for my feelings? That was my creation of what they shared. That's not the language that they use, but that's how I saw it was where am I been blaming people and saying, well, no wonder I feel like this. You'd feel like this too if you had a wife like that. Or no wonder I'm feeling like this. You'd be feel like this too if you had a president like that. Let's not go that direction, but that's kind of a similar, very similar kind of a thing. Or you'd feel like this too if you had a son that acted like my son or a daughter that acted like my daughter. But the place that I saw that was most meaningful for me to clean up, where I've had the most breakdowns in the relationship, was with my daughter's mother. Um, and that's not who I wrote my letter to. I wrote my letter to my brother, where there's also some breakdown. But the most meaningful shift that happened during the event was I called Melanie on the phone, and the conversation was something around. I said, "Hey, whenever we were married, um, I wasn't kind to you. I was not present. I blamed you for so many things in our marriage." And I shared with her that I was apologizing and I was sorry for that, and that um, I wanted to hear her experience of what that was like for her. And to preface this a little bit, I had thought I had already done that. I thought I had already cleaned that up because I thought I've already apologized. I thought I had already gone back and cleaned that up. But what I realize now is the reflection of the relationship and the communication tells me whether I've cleaned it up or not. Because our communication was still breaking down, and there was still frustration, and there was still anger, and there was still like, well, you can't do that. No, you got to do it like this. Still a lot of frustration in the communication. And what I realize now is that was a reflection of me. I had not cleaned it up. I had not owned my side of the street. And maybe that's something I'll have to continue to do for the rest of my life, which is okay, one day at a time. Maybe that's something I'll get to do. I'll get to create, be able to create, and to own for whenever it comes up. Um, but what happened after that was very miraculous. I had the conversation. I shared that with her, and then for about 15 minutes, she shared with me what her experience was like. She had a lot of fear, a lot of frustration. She felt alone. She felt scared, and she felt like she didn't have me to turn to because I was blaming her for my where I was and how I felt. Um, and I was able to listen to her through that. And then she asked me, "Well, what do you want me to say?" And I said, "I don't want you to say anything. I want to have this conversation so that we can create a connection together and serve the children so we can be there united for our children, whatever that looks like. And she went on a little longer and she said, well, what do you want me to do? And I said, I don't want you to do anything. I just want to have this conversation with you so that we can connect and be united for our children, for our son that's 23 and our two daughters, 17 and 7. And at the end of that conversation, she said, well, I just can't believe you're any different. And she hung up. And then she called me back about 15 minutes later and said, hey, I'm sorry that I hung up on you. I'm just not sure how to deal with this. Um, and since then, our relationship has gotten, I would say, 85 to 90% better. Which is phenomenal, phenomenal. It's amazing. And even to the point that my youngest daughter lives with her mother pretty much full time, and my oldest daughter lives with me full time. And even to the point where Melanie said, hey, I don't think she would have ever done this before that conversation. She said, hey, if Lily, that's our youngest daughter, if Lily wants to come live with you next year, she said, let's talk about that. And I said, great, that's great. Let's see what she wants. But before that conversation, that would not have happened. No, there's no way that she would have ever considered that as a possibility. So that was a miracle. That was one of the miracles that came from being attending the Landmark Forum. Um, and it was hard for me. I have to say, it was really hard for me. It brought up a lot of self judgment. It brought up a lot of, I could even see my thinking. Have you ever been able to see your thinking? I could see my thinking, all the judgments, but I couldn't stop it. And it was kind of nice to be able to see it, but at the same time, it was very frustrating because I was like, yeah, I can see it. So what the heck does that mean? It's still there, right? Still bombarding. Like, I even, to the extent that I was judging myself because I didn't have anything messed up enough to share with the group that was going to be, I felt like, my life's not messed up enough. Nobody's going to want to hear my story. That's how powerful the judgment was. It was like, my life's too good. I can't share how good my life is. Maybe I should make up a story of how terrible everything, and I've done some work up till now, and I've had some experience with doing this work because my life has been, there are some rough parts of my life that I have done some work on. Jed has his hand up. Hi, Jed.
Hey, yeah, I just wanted to say that, like, yeah, I felt the same way. Like, I was like, wow, like, I don't have anything worth sharing. Like, my life isn't messed up enough. And it was just like, I don't know. Yeah. And I found that I even had a lot of judgment of myself, just like sitting there and being in the forum and listening to other people share. I was like, well, I can't, like, I'm not as eloquent as this person, or I can't talk that eloquent, or I don't have something that's this messed up to share with people. Like, why, like, what would be even be the point of me talking? And that, like, that whole, like, me judging myself just really limited. Like, I can see now how it limited, like, my experience and my engagement of, like, in the seminar, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, Jed was one of the fellow participants in the forum that I was in. So it was great. It was great to be with you on that journey, Jed, and still on the journey together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you too, Robert.
Yeah, and that's very, very common. So thank you for sharing that as well. And yeah, I guess I could have shared that at the time and I didn't, so I couldn't have. That is the way it is. That was really meaningful to see that because it helped me to see also that is all a reflection of a decision that I made in the past. All those judgments of which I was able to get more clear on where they came from is all a decision that I made in the past. It's some decision I made in the past that's bringing that stuff up in the present where I decided, well, I'm not enough. Well, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. When I share my don't smoke in bed picture, everybody thinks it's stupid. And the facts of what happened was I colored a picture, I brought it to school, and some kids laughed. That was what really happened, but the story of what I created was very different. The story of what I created was something that um, I think I already had created some of those stories before that, and maybe that was me gathering evidence for I'm not enough. People don't want to hear me. I'm not important. I don't have anything meaningful to say. But it was able to help me get a little more clear about how those things are coming in. So I think for me, being able to see the judgments, although it was painful, was a gift because there's a time when I lived in those judgments and just thought it was completely true. So there's a little bit of space, which is nice to be able to. There was a time when that's just how it was. It wasn't, oh, that's a thought. Okay, where's that coming from? So it created some more space between me and the thinking. Um, and there's a phenomenal video by Gabor Mate and Ronnie Bori, um, one of my colleagues, amazing, amazing coach, and she's also a therapist as well, psychologist. But one of the things that Gabor says in that video is that trauma is not what happens to you, it's what happens inside of you. And the forum that collapse with the circles that they do, where it's like what happened, the facts, and the story of what happened. For me, that was really clear of like this what happened is what happened to me. The story is what happened inside of me. Um, and it was very, very helpful after the forum that I watched that video and I was able to see how that relates so much to what the forum was sharing is that what where my feelings come from in my experience is the story that arises with the moment, um, and being able to start to separate, okay, what are the basic facts, what are the circumstances, and then what's the story of what happened or what's my experience, and being able to separate those two things is really helpful to start to clear up the middle part is where the feelings come up. um, so that's been a fun practice to continue to move forward with and to see in my life where that's still coming up. um, so by the third day I had the bombardment of judgments had somewhat subsided and I started to be more present in the room. And Jim, you'll be glad to know that I did stop taking notes the after the first like beginning of the day because I had so much going on in my head anyway that it did I was like there was so much going on up here that I was doing my best to be present, but it was very difficult. I want to do the forum again because I feel like going in and being able to be more present this time would make a difference for me, I'm sure. So that's on my list of things to create. Um, and I'm curious, I know we still have about 22 minutes. I'd love to hear uh, what's everybody that's here right now. Can you relate to what I'm sharing and what are you getting from what I'm sharing? Is there something that you're hearing in this that's valuable for you. I'd love to hear anybody who's open to share their experience.
Yeah, I can share some. Yeah, just that
Sure.
quote that you said that like trauma isn't what happens to us, it's what happens inside of us. Like that really like resonates with me because I can see like even more so, more importantly than like finding the story and like thinking about my story is like a lot of the time during the seminar, I was like, oh, I don't have a story. I don't have a story because I had become like so unconscious that I had like almost like pushed it away and like kind of like sheltered that for myself. Like even more so importantly than finding the story is like looking at the areas of my life and today, right now, like how I'm where I'm not engaged or the way that I'm reacting to something in a way that isn't conscious or present in a way in a place where I'm like disengaged or where I'm judging rather than like empathizing or engaging. And just that like any area of my life where I'm like not present, like that's almost can be seen as like a sign of like trauma almost.
Yeah, thanks for sharing.
But yeah, your experience of landmark definitely like resonates with me a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you said yes to this. Yeah, that is something else I experienced in the forum is through other people sharing and then the reflections from other people. Through that sharing, it helps every person um, to take these things deeper and to see things in a more um, just in a more clear way. That was something that I really got from the forum was how much we built on each other sharing. How when one person would share, another person would share, another person would share, and that created a space of connection, deep connection, and deep, meaningful relationship um, for many, many people in the room. And I think if I would have gone without any expectation and just showed up, um, I'm confident the relationships that I created would have been there would have been a whole lot more. And I'm so glad that we created our relationship. We had a fun time. Jed and I throughout the day, I had a cowboy hat on. I was kind of changing costumes throughout the weekend. I had all kinds of different hats and different shirts, and Jed had a sweater and he said, I like your hat. And I said, well, I like your sweater. Or he said, I forget how it went. But anyway, I said, let's trade. And he said, yes. So he took my hat and I put on his sweater and we went through the day with, I had his sweater on, he had a hat. And then his girlfriend really likes his sweater. So I gave him his sweater back and you still have the hat. I gave you the hat, but that was pretty fun. That was a fun experience. Jim has his hand up. Hi, Jim.
Yeah. s- Hi. So just so everyone knows, um, I know Robert through his friend Steve that told him about the Landmark Forum. And just to be authentic, Larry was mentoring me to be a Landmark Forum leader. Um, I've done basically every single program of Landmark. Um, and I think I've done the forum 5 times and probably assisted 5 times. Um, so each time you go in there, you'll get something different. Two things. So number one, just so everyone is aware, the letters is LGAT, LGAT, so LGAT, and that's called Large Group Awareness Training. And so when you talk about sharing in a large group awareness training, what happens is as I'm speaking right now, you guys are talking over there and you're part of the experience. You don't have to do anything. This is why taking notes is useless. Maybe taking a note on LGTA, LGAT is important, just so that you can remember it, right? And that's a quick little note. You do it, you're back. Um, so when you're in large group awareness training, as I'm speaking, all of you can hear what I'm saying, and you're automatically always automatically already making meaning out of what I'm saying. Matter of fact, the word being means meaning. So there's meaning for everything. And we're falling into it or thrown into it at any point in time. So if I were to say I have 3 daughters, you've already identified the kids that you have, or maybe kids you're going to have, or relating to brothers and sisters. And there's already meaning there. I have a 16-year-old, a 12-year-old, both daughters. And my third one is a daughter also. She would be in college as a freshman, but she died when she was 2. So how I found Landmark Forum was my daughter passed away, and I described to my friend Marshall how I was doing, and he said, "Oh, now just notice as I'm speaking, you're already going through the large group awareness training, and mostly you're probably associating back to your past." And so what we do with our past is we think we are doing it we're taking our past and putting it in our present. It's so much worse than that. We're taking our past in every moment and we throw it into our future. So when we wake up in our past, the moment our feet hit the floor. So we're always in the past. And it's pretty easy. If I say, what is my head on? Your meaning comes from the past. To be without meaning is forgetting what you already know. That's presence. That's why they call it present. So you can be authentic or inauthentic. Most of us lie to ourselves. Catch yourself lying, just notice. So we're always making meaning. So meaning is always, that's why it's be, do, have. Your being constitutes or begets what your actions or what you do. Your doing or actions beget what you have. So if you have something bad, well, change who you're being. You change who you're being, it changes your actions, it puts you into a different location where what you have. But if you're operating from the past, like you always are, then you're just going to keep getting more of what you've always had. And that's why you had a miracle with your ex-wife. And that's why she's stuck in the past, because she listened to you from the past. That's why she hung up on you. That's why she doesn't believe it. Okay? Because who she's being is who you are in your past. Now, a really easy way is just go back to who you were being and you just proved her right. But keep being who you're being, she's going to see you differently. And anything's possible from there. And that's why Landmark's technology is all based on transformation, possibilities, and enrollment. So you were enrolled into an opportunity of seeing things newly and in the present moment. And that's what you were doing. I know you, Robert. You would have given anybody your hat or your flannel that you have on right now. I'd be like, yeah, I like that shirt. You'd be like, here, take it. But there's something about that also, because we're in a unified field and we are all connected in some way or shape or form. It doesn't matter if you're female, male, or what age you are. We're really all one. And I'm speaking from a place of source where I am a disciple of Jesus Christ. I'm also a leader, or I am a leader that exercises leadership effectively as my natural self-expression. So, yeah, so I've been doing this work for a long time, and I just wrote a book called Falling into Being Moment by Moment. It's at the editor. It'll be out in April. But once you see this, you can't unsee it. And it's an exercise that you do on a daily basis, a moment by moment basis, like you breathe. It's like you can imagine anything that you want or be anything, and you can have that. And that's where collapse happens. There's like these wooden beams, if you will, or steel beams. For some people, it's concrete beams. it's holding up something. Like like for you, I need my ex-wife to like me. That could be a pillar that you have up. And then when you're like, I don't need her to like me anymore, you can now knock that pillar down, Robert, or anyone with anything. But because we keep the meaning alive, that stays alive and it stays erect, meaning we're holding it up. And it takes something to hold something up. And that's our past. Our past goes into our future and our future. And then we arrive into our future and it, hello, it's your past. So the moment you realize that, you can start collapsing, destroying those things. Because what's happened is we've all been thrown into where we are right now. We were all thrown into this call. That's a thrownness. And then we all have our own mindness, MINE. And so when we go through this, life is all about being. And your future happens in this very moment, every moment. So if you don't like your future or your present, you just keep changing who you're being right now. You don't have to wait till next month or next year. You can do it right now in the present moment. So yeah, your whole conversation, even though I've done the Landmark Forum so many times, and now my 12-year-old and my 16-year-old did it when she was 8, and she'll be doing the forum again this year. So, but yeah, with Landmark, there's so many things to offer. And when you do the forum, you get 10 weeks of a weekly workshop. And those are just to keep that conversation alive and keep exercising, because our brain is like a muscle for being. If you exercise it, you can't see it. You can see it when I show up. You can see who I'm being, right? And when you see me show up, there is something there. Same thing for each one of you. There's something there when you show up. And when you show up, I call it the showing. The person that created all this work, his name's Werner Erhard. I've been with him for, I'll count days, probably 15 days I've been with Werner Erhard. It's like the same thing with Steve. I've been with Steve maybe 50 days. So when you're with people like that are in that presence, you have nothing yet but to learn what that presence is. And anything in your life is actually possible. I mean, anything, literally. I could spin your guys' heads on all the things I've accomplished in my life. And I'm 56 years old. And here I have a bad stomach ache where I can't even stand up and can't even sit. So I'm laying down on my bed, but I feel good in this position. That's all I have to share on that.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate you sharing.
Absolutely. I love you, Robert.
Love you too, Jim. Thank you. So glad you're here. And I'm very grateful. There was an amazing event from my coach at the time, Sachin Sharma, called the Lamron Intensive, which is normal backwards.
I was just going to tell everybody that. Yeah. Were you at my house when you were at my house when Sachin was doing that class, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was an amazing experience, and thank you so much. I wanted to share my gratitude for you
Absolutely.
allowing us to use your beautiful home for that
Absolutely.
event. It was really a great, very miraculous experience, and I could talk about that for a while as well. But I know this is about the Landmark Forum. Some miracles came from that event as well. Um, yeah, I love everything you shared, Jim. And I love that you said being means meaning. So it's the meaning that we're stepping forward and creating.
Well, let me just correct one thing. Well, it's
Yeah,
not
please.
correction. I'll unfold it a little bit. A small b is a defaulted way of being. Like some of us are female, some of us are male. That's a defaulted being, a small b. Now I could have a created being and I could become a woman, right? That happens nowadays. So
Hmm.
that's a transformation that leads us you into a possibility, and that's a created way of being, right? That would be a capital B because you said something to have it that way. Typically, when we were all born into this world. We didn't ask to be born. We don't ask to die. Most of us don't. A very small percentage choose to die, but we all are going to die. Hello, there's just to let you guys know that's how the story ends. Um, so there's a thrownness where we're thrown into things. You were thrown into divorce. You didn't cause the divorce. You were thrown into it, Robert. All of us are thrown into something, but we're all falling automatically. You're falling right now through moment to moment to moment. There's a fallingness going on. When you stop falling, you get absorbed by something or you drift. It's like looking out the window. So, in your being is meaning. Anything that you're creating, like you create an upset, well, that's being. You have the power to do that. I want to be upset now. Well, okay, you just created that. Well, did you intentionally create upset? Did you really want the upset? Most people don't. So you can create something in your life. And when you start creating and you have say in it, and it's not from the past, right? And it was created from the present moment into the future. Like this would be something that would be a created state. All four of us are going to be in Arizona on October 1st through the October 3rd. That's a creation that wasn't from any of our pasts, and it's not planned right now. So that's a capital B. You just created it, or I just created it. So those are creations. And when you start seeing, oh wow, these cool things are happening, it's because you were thrown into being. And that's what the forum is. It throws you into being to experience that. And it's all through your experiential thing, just like in the large group. Because in the large group, when one person's up on the mic speaking, all of your past and your beingness sees that and it automatically relates everything on that person up on the microphone, and it agitates, perturbates you either as the needle or the balloon into seeing how you are them and they are you. And that's why the landmark forum is so successful. Thank you.
Yeah, that's the LGAT. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. That's amazing. Um, yeah, and that's why at the beginning of Landmark, Larry said, make promises you don't know how to keep, become the person who can create it. That's where we say, hey, we're all gonna meet next week or whatever, and we're gonna meet at this date. I mean, this Zoom group is a great example. Like I'm doing this. I wasn't gonna do it. I wasn't gonna do it. I said, I'm gonna show up and find out. Let's see what happens. And here we are. Jim came and I learned that you know Larry and his wife. And I learned that you've done the landmark 5 times. And I learned that you were training with Larry to be a forum leader, which is amazing.
And then I chose not to be a landmark forum later. And I told him I won't be doing that.
That's awesome too.
Yeah,
I love
exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Well, we have 3 more minutes for this container. So I'd love to hear Sapita has her hand up. I'd love to hear a reflection from Sapita. Julie, if you're open after Sapita, I'd love to hear.
Yes, yes, for sure. I'm not going to take long, but I just wanted to thank you, Robert, for sharing this amazing experience. And I like the fact that, the whole story of how, with what expectation you were going, how you were feeling. And then you had that moment of, oh, all my life is not together. And it's all of us. It happened. I resonate with that. The moments that I get, oh my God, I got this. There are moments when I go to my therapist or say, I say, oh, this part is not resolved yet. And I love it. Now I started loving it, as you said. It's just because it's how amazing it is that all the time we have to grow and learn a lot. So that was, I resonate with that a lot. The story of you and your ex-wife, that was very touching. I love the conversation that you had with her and how it affected the whole, dynamic of you guys. And I would be curious to ask her why she hung up. And I don't know if you did or not, but that would be something I would have done to ask, so for me was that maybe she was waiting for you to ask her something more. So
Mm.
I don't know, like, but as a woman, I would like to know more about that part for you, so what was the reason? And then I always have this helicopter view, but I never say it the way you say it, that you create a space. So that word of space between me and you, I like it because I always say that, when I had a helicopter view, I was able to see it differently. But what you said that there is a space you create. So I love the word space that you put in this. I don't know if I'm clear to explain, but I
Yeah.
like that.
Mhm.
Yes, there is a space it creates between that. I loved it. And regarding the trauma, yes, the trauma, what happens inside you. And I also heard somebody whose name is not coming to my mind now, but he said that trauma sometimes happens just before that. Not just before, but trauma happens to you before. And when that thing happens, it's basically what brought you to that happen to you, that is the trauma. And I found it with my experience or the trauma that I went through, I could totally resonate with that. What I became and that happened to me, that was I was resonate with that too. So thank you again for sharing
Yeah.
and for creating this space.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for everybody who's here. If you have any questions or anything, or you'd like to watch this recording, reach out after this. You can send me a message. We're at the end of the hour, so if you have any
Sure.
questions or anything or any comments, just send them to me then. Thank you everybody for being here,
Thank you.
and we'll talk soon. See ya.
See.
See ya. Bye bye.